You're watching The Issue Is.
At a certain point, we turned to each other and we said, is there anything we could do? And long story short, Meidas Touch is the result of that.
That was the first time the Meiselas brothers appeared here on The Issue Is, back in 2020 when they were first starting off. Well, this year, they beat Joe Rogan multiple times for top podcast spot in the whole country. Here are some stats. Their show, 107.7 million downloads in April. They're averaging 33 million views every 48 hours. And they have more than 5 million subscribers. Ben, Brett, Jordy Meiselas, welcome back to The Issue Is, and congrats on all that crazy success.
It's great to be here,
so
Elex, and we were with you right from the beginning. Before there were millions of subscribers, you had us on. It's great to be back.
Well, we
all look so much younger in that video, though. That's the only issue that I see. It hasn't even been that long.
Yeah, that's what the real issue is. What happened?
Man, I mean, the digital space is so crowded. So many people now talking about politics. What do you think sets you all apart? What do you think is the secret to that success?
Look, I think it's power to the people. I think we've always recognized that our network is really built on a movement of people who care about democracy and who haven't been listened to, right? People have been expressing how they feel about issues that are really important. You know, when it comes to issues of housing, when it comes to issue about the costs of living, when it comes to issues of healthcare, when it comes to just issues of normalcy. And I think people have felt that they've been ignored on those issues. And because we've always listened and deeply cared, and we don't come from political backgrounds, we were just three brothers who were scared during the pandemic and wanted to try to make a difference. We've always just had a natural inclination just to listen and to hear people out and respond to that. And that's how we built this really brick by brick, and the Meidas Touch Network is really made up of the Meidas Mighty, the incredible followers and supporters who watch us and spread the word every day.
And part about being a digital first is you get real-time feedback by seeing what's hitting, what's not hitting. And early on, what was one of the keys to the success were these videos that you made about Donald Trump. Often went viral, and you were able to defeat him in 2020. And now, of course, he's back as president and is really dominating the whole conversation once again. Brett, why do you think President Trump has been able to come back and continue to be so at the front and center of our political dialogue?
You know, I think there are people out there right now who are experiencing deep pain with the system in which we all exist, right? I think the country made a pact with everybody. It's called the American Dream, that everybody was going to be able to live lives better than their parents, that you go to school, you'll get a good job, you'll get a good paying job, you'll be able to take vacations. And I think we've seen kind of the collapse of that pact. And I think it sent our politics into kind of turmoil as people try to grapple with the new system in which we exist. And so I think this is taking many different forms. Now, in my opinion, I think Trump weaponized that sentiment and lied to the people in order to kind of take over the conversation once again. But Donald Trump clearly ran against the institutions, and people were angry about the institutions because the institutions were failing them. And I think we kind of see that in all aspects in races across the country, whether it's Trump, whether it's the New York City mayoral race, that people just want to be heard. And Trump, you know, I think he lied about it, you know, I would say pretty confidently. But he made people feel heard. He said, yes, I agree with you. The system sucks. We have to burn it all down. And that seemed to be an appealing message to a lot of folks. And I think that's kind of the context where we find ourselves in, and why we see people who are so angry about the system, angry about institutions, angry about maybe their former sources where they used to get information. And so we're seeing that all at play today.
Is there anything that he deserves credit for? I mean, if this Iran attack really did take out the nuclear weapon program in Iran, is that a good thing, Brett?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to judge everything on its merits, right? I'm not going to approach things and just say, oh, it's Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. This is bad. Like, that's not how I'm going to approach things. But I want to know the truth. And so with the Iran thing, with all things Donald Trump, the first thing that he says you have to understand that's not necessarily the facts. And I think in the past, we've always had embellishments and propaganda and lies from the government. There's nothing new. But what we're seeing today is on a whole other level, to a point where we simply do not know what to believe or what not to believe from the United States government. And I think that's a frightening idea. And to see an attack, something of such grave importance, we bombed another country. It's a big deal. And to not totally understand the facts and to be told, on the one hand, right off the bat, have this kind of George W. Bush mission accomplished moment, spike the football, we did it, we obliterated the nuclear facilities, and then to get reports that said, hey, while we damaged the facilities, they're still very much standing and they're going to be able to rebuild this thing within a couple months. That's a big distinction that we have to know about. And I think when you have a government that, instead of leveling with the people and saying that this is what's going on and will we have to take action in the future? Well, let me tell you where Iran is right now with their nuclear program. Let me tell you how much they've been set back. Instead of leveling with the people in that way, continuing to double down, calling in the press for a press conference and berating good reporters like Jennifer Griffin of Fox News, who are just trying to get to the bottom of what's actually going on. To me, that's not how a transparent government should be operating. And so you need to get the facts in order to judge things good or bad. When I see that lying, when I see that gaslighting, that is a red flag for me.
I want to bring the New Yorker in the group into the conversation. Jordy, big week in New York politics. What do you make of Zohran Mandami, who is a democratic socialist, not a big fan of capitalism, Israel, or the police, winning the Democratic nomination?
I'll say this. If you look at how Mandami spoke to the people of New York, I mean, he really spoke to the people of New York. Now, granted, I can't speak to every issue. I don't pretend to know all of his policies and politics, but from a purely campaign aspect, this is a guy who was on the ground, in the streets, showing up on the podcasts, showing up in the digital ecosystems, and really connecting and resonating and speaking to the issues of the people of New York at such a larger scale than I think any of his other primary opponents were doing. It was a no-brainer why his message was resonating with folks. And I think once you get past sort of how the news likes to cover Mandami versus what Mandami is actually saying and doing in New York, I think it's very clear why he was resonating with those folks and they let their votes be known.
And Elex, to be clear, Jordy's a Yinzer. Jordy's a Pittsburgh guy. He was a New York guy,
okay.
but Jordy's a Pittsburgh dude.
Oh, well,
I am a Yinzer these days, but I was, I look, our New York roots go back further. I wasn't gonna call him out on it here, but
it's a live fact check.
So you didn't vote in that race. So you can be more.
No. I mean, by the way, I'm a proud Yinzer. I wasn't trying to conceal that, but we do have our Long Island roots. Yeah. And we know New Yorkers well, and we visit often. And so for me, I could understand where the voters of New York were at.
Well, Elex, I had to give Jordy cover when he goes to the Steelers games, that if they were to see this interview.
What do you think, Jordy, is the lesson that other politicians that may not even have the same perspective as Mandami can learn from what he's doing on social media?
You got to speak to the issues that people care about. And for so many people in this country, that's healthcare, that's housing, that's how do we make this world more affordable for our loved ones? How do we make education more affordable? You have to speak to, women's reproductive rights and allow these ideas to be spoken about in a place that makes it all feel welcome to have the conversation. Right? You have to be understanding of the LGBTQIA community. You have to be understanding of what folks in your neighborhoods, what your communities deeply care about. And I think once you can connect with people on such a human level, like Mandami was able to do, well, then the proof is going to be in the pudding, as they say.
But Ben, is there some danger, though, in the actual positions, in the fact that he's been against or for defunding the police, that he's, for freeing Palestine, that, a lot of what he's saying, some people say, if you increase these taxes, it's not a realistic plan. Is there danger in that the Democratic Party gets associated with that?
Well, look, I'm not a campaign manager for Mandami, so I can't speak to all of his issues. But what he was running on is, I think, things that a lot of Americans want right now, which is better education, affordable housing, free busing. Americans feel that their issues have been ignored and that the billionaires are being favored, that there is a socialism taking place, but it's the billionaires getting all of the perks, all of the benefits. And we see that in this disastrous budget bill. And I think that's why it's so wildly unpopular. So people see right now, wait a minute, you're giving more benefits to the billionaires. I keep getting screwed. And Mandami ran a campaign that focused on that. And to that point also, whether it's the No Kings protests, whether it's the Fight the Oligarchy tour, I think that people are speaking loud and clear about what it is that they want, what it is that they want delivered. And I think to Brett's point, you have demagogues who can see those issues and kind of prey on him and not deliver and win elections. And then you have people who can recognize those issues. And I think Mandami was running his campaign largely on the issues of affordability. That was, if I could sum it up quickly, it was affordability. You're getting screwed by this system. I want to help. Now, let's see what happens, right? Let's judge it. Let's see what my dogs say about it. But ultimately, we will figure it out. I'm not sure if you heard the dogs in the back. One of the things when you're a YouTuber and you do live hits, you may have the dogs start barking. You don't know what's going to happen, Al. You don't have to worry about that at Fox.
That's okay. Ben, we here used to get the most interviews with Governor Newsom every year. But now he does the most with you. So how do you assess where he's at right now, and this increased aggressiveness? I mean, he sounds like he's working for you guys some of the time, the way that his social media strategy, has gone.
Look, I think he's working for the people and he's fighting for the people. And people want to see gloves off right now, right? I think people really like Governor Newsom, the fighter, Governor Newsom, who stands up to Donald Trump and calls Donald Trump out. I think that's meeting the moment right now. I mean, I just remember that scene at the tarmac where after Donald Trump would call Governor Newsom new scum and do all of that image of them right there together, Governor Newsom standing taller than Donald Trump and saying, I'm here. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then Donald Trump had the opportunity, if he wanted to go and do his new scum routine, the cameras were there. The cameras were there. And so I like that Governor Newsom saying, look, come at me, tough guy. You want to arrest me? Come after me right now. I'm here to protect the people of the great state of California, while this Donald Trump keyboard warrior stuff, new scum this, new scum that. It's just, it's not adult behavior. Like, let's just pull a step back, right? Trump's not acting like a grown-up. If your boss behaved like that at a large, medium, small-sized company or a nonprofit, or even for fantasy football teams, right? If someone was like, hey, Elex Newsom, well, you'd be like, dude, why are you on my league? Like, what are you doing? like, get out. So why do we tolerate this behavior at the presidency level? And I think, to your point, why do I think our network is growing? I think it's because what I just said right there. Like, that dot isn't really connected when sometimes people are so inside of the bubble that it just take a step back and go, what are we talking about? This is not normal behavior. And so I just think that a lot of Americans and a lot of Californians when Gavin Newsom stands up and says, don't do that.
Well, we've seen Brett, and you're the editor here, so you know how to do these videos, that we've seen his numbers go way up, not only in popularity, but also in social media followers, as they've changed strategy, it seems like, in the last few weeks, with his accounts going after Trump in an aggressive way, some might say childish way. So what you're saying, what do you make of that strategy and sort of what everybody can learn from that?
I think he understands that at this moment there is a vacuum out there, right? Democrats came out of this election and there's certainly a power vacuum, right? There's no sort of heir apparent. There is no, this person is the leader of the party. And quite frankly, I think a lot of our listeners are looking for who's that next person going to be. And the biggest question that they have is, who has my back? who has my interests at heart. And I think Governor Newsom recognized this authentically, and he's come out swinging because Donald Trump picked a fight with him, and it was a fight that I think Governor Newsom was happy to take on. And boy, is he taking it on. I mean, we're seeing that day in and day out, and he understands that it's important to be all over the map. It's important to be, by that I mean all across various digital platforms, various podcasts. It's important to do mainstream media hits, but it's also important to be on social media. And I think one of the lessons that I think Democrats probably learned far too late is that these alternative platforms like Meidas Touch and others are places where people are getting a lot of their information from. So you could ignore it at your own peril. Now, that doesn't mean that you ice out the kind of legacy outlets. It doesn't mean you don't appear on local news or cable news or go to the other sort of national papers. It's additive. You need to be everywhere. And I think it's a strategy that Meidas Touch early on, which is we were everywhere. We may not have had the money to start a cable network, or something like that, but we made sure, are we going to be on TikTok? We're going to be on Facebook. We're going to be on Twitter. We're going to have a podcast. We're going to be on Substack. We're going to do it all because we understand that people are consuming information now in a fragmented way, and we want to ensure that we're part of that conversation. And I think Governor Newsom understands that as well.
Yeah, and you guys and Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman and the Pod Save America guys, I mean, the amount of millions of people that watch all of you is really extraordinary. All right, so 2 quick questions around the horn. Jordy, we'll start with you. Who's the 2028 candidate you're most excited about?
Oh, I think right now I'm open to seeing the field. I don't have a specific, fight for it. I want to see who's speaking to the people. I want to see who is willing to meet the people where they are. So there's not one particular person. I'm excited to see everything sort of play out.
Brett, are you going to be more bold than Jordy?
I might be a little more bold, but I may say, I'm not saying this is my choice per chance. But I'll say that these are the people who are kind of sticking out to me as folks who are forward-thinking leaders for the future who could assume that role. I think Governor Newsom, we've been speaking about him a whole lot. I think he certainly should be in this conversation. I think Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has done a fantastic job at staying true to his values and his beliefs in a very red Republican state while having an approval rating, which is something like, I think last time I checked, it was like 67% or something insane for a politician in 2025 as a Democrat in Kentucky. I think that's very impressive. I think you look at folks like Wes Moore. I think you could kind of continue to go down this list, but there are emerging leaders, and we'll have to see, where it all lands as, these issues prop up. One of the things I've learned in these news cycles that we're in is that what you think today could be something totally different tomorrow or even in an hour from now.
Exactly.
So I'm taking myself out of the prediction business, Alex.
Well, that's why I didn't ask you to predict. I said, who are you most excited about? And Ben,
but these are the voices that I'm looking at. Right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna punt the question because, but I'll tell you why though, because the politicians aspect of this is actually not what excites me about what I do in a day-to-day. What the most thing that excites me about 2028 and the midterms is the No Kings protest and seeing the power of the people and seeing that it's almost like 3% of the population showed up a few weeks back, to protest peacefully. And so what I look forward to in 2028, what I look forward to 2026, and frankly, every day is people realizing their own agency, that there's not this sole figure who I alone can fix it. And I think when we've given up our agency to an individual who may be charismatic or whatever, that leads you down certain paths. So I think it's important that we recognize, again, people power. And that's what excites me most about what I do every day and looking ahead to 2028 and generationally. I think whatever the heck has just happened over the past, 150, 160 days has been a catastrophe. It's been an absolute disaster. And I hope it's a wake-up call to Americans that this is not good and we need to stop this and we need to move forward and reclaim the freedoms of America and make things better.
You can tell he's a good lawyer. He answered the question he wished he was asked. So let's go. And this one around the horn real quickly. Since we've been with you from the beginning, when you were just starting out, I mean, you have become this whole phenomenon. So real quickly for each of you, what is the most surreal moment of this whole journey for you? Ben, let's start with you.
You know what? Being back on the show with you, Alex, right now is it because, and I'm not just saying that to flatter you, although I'm partially saying
Yes.
it. I'm partially saying it.
You were in the White House with Joe Biden, and you're picking being a Zoom with the issue is? Come on. Even I'm not picking up on that BS, but go ahead.
Honestly, this is a dream come true right now. Split screen with you and my brothers. But when I reflect back on what we set out to accomplish 4 or 5 years ago, right? When no one was talking about independent media and pro-democracy media. So when I go out in public and when people come up to me and say how significantly this has impacted their lives and has helped them get through these times, those interactions to me are inspiring and surprising and make it all worth it every single day.
So if you were to go on social media at any given point on any platform and you look up Meidas, the way we spell it, you will find people who put Meidas in their name, Meidas Elex, Meidas Brett, Meidas. And these are people who don't work for us. These are people who are just so inspired by the movement that they will view this as, I'm a medical doctor and I'm Meidas. and it's a crazy thing for us, right? That to me truly blows me away and allows me to get up every day kind of inspired and ready to work because I know who I'm fighting for.
It's not about Ben, Brett, or Jordy. It's about the Meidas Mighty and the pro-democracy community that we're all rallying behind this message of, hey, we just want normalcy. We just want truth. We just want facts and data and stop feeding me the other BS. And so to see that type of message resonate at such a larger scale that's continuing to grow week over week, month over month, it's been incredible to see. And we do view it as a tremendous amount of responsibility, and we're excited to keep on building.
Yeah, and I just noticed, Jordy, over your shoulder, you've got quite an award, right?
That's the Webby Award for Podcast of the Year. We were Podcast of the Year in 2025, so make sure you download the Meidas Touch podcast or subscribe to the Meidas Touch podcast on Apple or Spotify. Check us out on youtube.com/Meidas Touch. Listen to the podcast. It's awesome.
Okay. I don't even need to do the promo. I guess you just read it. So there we go. Congratulations, guys. Really proud of all your success and grateful to call you friends.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for all you do.